Americans today are so concerned about the future. They're concerned about the economy, about the food, about government, about war, about so many different things. Today, the economy being arguably the most imperative one right now because people are struggling. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to retain their value in their retirement. Today I have a guest who is not only an expert in such topics as gold and silver, but who has an astounding grasp of the economy in general. We are very blessed, pleased, and honored to have Jonathan Rose, co-founder of Genesis Gold Group, joining us today. Jonathan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, JD. Thank you once again for having me back on your show.
Well, it's good to have you. For complete transparency, let's just get the disclaimer out there. This show that you're listening to, that you're watching right now, would not be possible without Genesis Gold Group. Genesis is our primary sponsor. They have put tens of thousands, billions of dollars into this show, as you can tell by my amazing background. And so we are truly legitimately blessed to have them with us because they do believe in the message. They are an America First company, and as the name implies, they are a faith-driven company. This is Genesis, as in Genesis from the Bible. Now, Jonathan, with the disclaimer out of the way, we
Hmm.
look around and we see, the gold prices, at least this week. Silver prices have
Yeah.
been skyrocketing, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, that's a bad thing. That means that they make up reasons, especially if they're into the stock market or whatever. They oh no, that's bad. It's not bad. Okay, if you own gold and silver right now, things are looking good. But I need to know from you, why is this happening? What it prompted this rise in prices that we're seeing recently?
Well, the general consensus in a rally that we've been witnessing right now is really being focused around interest rates, where they're very hawkish that interest rates could come down next year. So how does that have a reflection, or what's the relationship there with gold? Well, generally speaking, or historically, when interest rates have been high, people have shied away from gold because gold doesn't pay a dividend, and people tend to shift more into treasuries or some type of form of treasury bill. So, when you look at the price of gold and people hear that the interest rates could be cut next year, that's actually a bullish sentiment for the price of gold. So there's been a short-term rally here. However, the old textbook analogy of interest rates being higher and gold prices going down, I think somebody really needs to rewrite this textbook, because to me, I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, we've had a phenomenal run for gold this year. It's up over 14, 15%. 5-year gold is up also over 60%. So those numbers, or the old analogies of inverse relationships, I think they're out the window. I think the reason why we've also seen a rally in gold, and I expect this rally to continue into the next year, is just for simple reasons. One, people are waking up to the fact that the US dollar is losing value year after year. And in fact, a staggering figure I tell people that's almost shocking is since 1933, the US dollar has lost 92% of its purchasing power, which is pretty scary, yet gold's retained that value. Obviously, we're coupling in what's happening internationally with Israel, Russia, Ukraine, so international conflicts. Higher interest rates, as mentioned, trying to curb high inflation. Inflation's very insidious. We don't see it. It's like a little caterpillar on the leaf taking a small bite out of our purchasing power. Now, data came out the other day just saying that inflation's lowering. Well, again, you read these headlines, but it doesn't hit Main Street for quite some time, because investors and people we speak to, they're still struggling. Sometimes people are working two jobs, or their wages aren't going up, but the cost of living is. Food's becoming more expensive, gas prices aren't coming down. So a lot of these factors that I'm talking about, and even things like JD central bank digital currencies, which CBDCs, which I'm very vocal about. There's many issues that we have. All of these issues that I'm spitting out here and more, this is called the everything bubble. And top economists are referring to everything and more that can possibly go wrong. So again, this is kind of like spurring the yellow metal to continuing this rally. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. Obviously, what comes up comes down, the same with equities. Okay, so nothing goes up forever. There will be small corrections, but I think the sentiment here, especially going into 2024, is still very bullish. We don't have a crystal ball, but I believe we have a very strong roadmap. And this roadmap that I'm more than happy to always share and discuss with people is something people should be informed of, because an informed investor is a better investor. And once people do get a stronger grasp and education on what's happening in the economy, what's about to happen with precious metals, they can get a better understanding of how to really diversify their portfolio and move a part of that into physical assets such as gold and silver.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense, especially with what I'm hearing, from my people is you got a lot of concern right now. You touched on so many of them. CBDCs, that's one of the biggest. People are still concerned about ESG. We've seen a shift away from ESG to some extent, but it doesn't seem to be a permanent shift, and we're still seeing woke investments dominating people's retirement accounts. Of course, you've talked about the value of the dollar, and when they say that inflation is coming down, what they're really saying is that it's not inflation isn't going up as much as it was before, which is still inflation. But we can talk about that some other time. But the thing that intrigued me the most just now is you mentioned that you have a roadmap, and you mentioned 2024. And whenever I talk to financial people, whenever I say, what's it going to happen next year, they always say, oh, there's no way to tell. Nobody knows. And I appreciate that, because the people that say, oh, for sure it's going to happen, and gold is going to be worth $7,500 by January of next year, that's when I usually hang up the phone. Where do you stand? You have the roadmap. You obviously keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening to the economy. What does your roadmap tell you about what's coming in 2024?
Well, there's a little saying in the market that's always very true, and it's the trend is your friend. Unfortunately, the trend this time seems to be a plethora of bad news that we don't want to become the trend, but this is just facts that we have to deal with in today's environment. So something that I think is on the forefront, that's something people should really pay attention to, are really bank failures. Obviously, we saw what happened earlier in the year with Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic. Well, now commercial loans are defaulting at such an alarming rate. Now, this is a major issue simply because banks have a lot of bad loans on their books. And in fact, Moody's, who's the credit bureau who really comes out and says how safe these banks are, how viable they are, liquidity-wise, they've just downgraded 7 major US retail banks. So I think we're going to see some more bank failures, and when banks go under, that creates a lot of fear, a lot of panic, and when there's panic and fear, there's sell-offs. So sell-offs would essentially be in the equities market. Now, obviously, there's got to be a button where they kind of freeze the markets when that happens, so people can kind of collect their senses and carry on trading. But I think bank failures is something that people sweep under the rug. And I think we've also been conditioned. We hear these bad news, more bad news, more bad news, and we kind of almost blow it off or ignore it, or it becomes the norm. And there's nothing normal about bad news upon bad news and not expect further repercussions, because let's face it, in the '08 crisis that got missed by many people, a lot of people lost 60, 70, 80, 90% of their wealth, especially people who had retirement accounts. So in terms of having a crystal ball and seeing into the future, obviously it's not an exact science, but we definitely have the economics and fundamentals to kind of be ringing the alarm bells, waving the red flag, and realizing that we need to move to higher grounds to protect ourselves from a tsunami wave of destruction. I always tell people you have health insurance for yourself, insurance for your car. If you are invested in equities, you want to have insurance for your equities. And in my opinion, the safest way to do that is to have an asset of gold and silver. Now, I may add to that, JD, because I was speaking to CBS Market Watch earlier today, and they were asking me, well, how do you get exposure to assets like gold and silver? There's gold ETFs, electronic traded funds. There are gold mining stocks. And there's also physical gold and silver. And they were asking me, which do I prefer? I'm a big believer in owning physical metals, something tangible, something you can hold. If you drop it, it hits your foot, you go, ow. Okay, so that's the tangible aspect of having gold and silver. You have it in your hand. It's never going to disappear. It can't be mass produced. When you have ETFs, electronically traded funds, yes, it's giving you exposure to the market, but you actually don't own the gold. When people want to say, well, you can buy futures contracts in gold, unless you're a trader, you'd want to stay away from that. You don't want to become try and become an expert trader if you've never owned a stock before. Very risky. And then when you look at gold mining stocks, not to say that they're bad per se, but you're really investing in the management company, who's on the board of directors, who's the CEO. Are they going to mine any gold out of the ground? Once they find a new mining source, it takes 7 years to excavate the gold and refine it to make it profitable anyway. So there's many variables involved in gold mining stocks and ETFs. So if you want exposure to gold and silver, the safest way and the easiest way is to simply hold on to it. Buy the tangible stuff, whether it's coins, whether it's bars, which kind of also leads me into, how to invest in tangible assets, whether you're holding on to it yourself, or if you have a retirement account, a pension account, such as an IRA or 401k, the IRS lets you roll that over tax-free, and you can put precious metals in an IRA. It's still an IRA, exactly like you have now, except you have actual physical metals that you own in your name. And to me, that's the ultimate safety and security and the ultimate hedge you can really provide for yourself right now in this economic climate.
Well, it's funny that you mention the physical nature of it. I have looked into ETFs. For those who are maybe new to the show or aren't familiar with the story, I was never a fan of gold or silver. Okay, up until right around 2021. Oh, in early January, mid-January of 2021, when I started realizing, wow, this is about to go south. I used to be a big fan of, hey, just keep your money in the stock markets. It's never going to crash. Keep your money here or there because, the economy is going to be just fine. Don't worry, Trump's got this. Well, once Trump was gone and we started seeing some of the policies that were being put forth by the Biden-Harris regime, that's where I switched my tune and started looking into gold and silver. And I had vetted out 31 separate companies over the course of about a year and a half, 31 companies that I looked at and started getting the practices for. And I promise you that there's a point to this story, so bear with me. You mentioned the physical aspect of it. Everyone and their dog says, oh yeah, you got physical precious metals. But when I would talk to them, and I'm not going to out any other gold companies, but I'm just going to say that when I talk to some of them, talking about the physical nature of the gold, where is the gold going to be? Can I actually go and touch it? Is it really mine? Are they going to, if at the end of the day, when I'm ready to cash out my retirement account, am I going to get a little certificate that says, hey, congratulations, here's your gold? When I was talking to you the first time, that was a great day, by the way, because that's why the show is even here. When I was talking to you the first time, you walked me through the physical nature of gold through Genesis Gold Group. You walked me through how people could actually, see their gold, even touch their gold, and you explained to me how you make sure that their gold, their physical gold, when it's time to take a distribution or when it's time to receive their retirement, that you can actually have the gold physically sent from their depository to their home. Is that all still accurate, or did I just out you for doing something evil?
No, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. The most important thing is that you're in control. And when you have a self-directed IRA, which people may refer to as a gold IRA, but it's called a self-directed IRA because self being in control. So the metals are held in a licensed depository that's backed by the major exchanges, insured by Lloyd's of London for $1 billion. So your metals are safe. Anytime someone wants to take a distribution through an IRA or 401k, they're able to liquidate it. Gold is very liquid, just as liquid as you have cash. Gold is a currency, so people can liquidate it, turn it back into fiat money. But what a lot of times people do, JD, is that they want to take possession of the metal at that time. So we actually have the metals shipped to them as well. So one of the things that I really like, and I think is a huge advantage with a precious metals IRA, is liquidations and distributions, because with a mutual fund, you liquidate it, you take the cash value. That's all you can do. With gold, it gives you options, and I like options, always like options. So that way you can liquidate it, you've got the cash, or you can take possession of the metal itself.
Nice. Nice. Anybody who wants to contact Jonathan and learn more about what they're doing, talk to them, somebody who can help to educate them, who can answer their questions honestly. They can go to protectwealthnow.com. That's protectwealthnow.com, and they'll be able to see what Genesis Gold Group can do. I have one more question for you, sir, and I don't know I don't know the answer to this. You and I are friends, but we've never actually talked about this. So I'm going to be learning, just as the audience is learning, this very important thing. With your finger to the pulse of the economy, plus with your, I know that you're constantly watching the news, seeing what's going on, looking for economic indicators, following the trends, as you say. What do you foresee as, and you can do it in any way you want. You can give me a stack list of most risky to least risky, but just tell me some of the things that you're hearing from people that you're talking to, and things that you're seeing out there in the financial world, things that we as American citizens should be most concerned about as it pertains to the economy. You mentioned CBDCs. That's a perfect example. What else is there that we should be
Yeah,
greatly concerned about
I'm
going forward?
I'm glad I'm glad you asked me that, because for a minute, JD, I was fearful you were going to ask me, what's the price of gold going to be on March 24th, 2024? And I was going to be like, I really don't know. People always try to, nail me down on that. So I never like to give price predictions, but I am bullish on the price of metals. But I think really the kind of the fear index is super high right now. The fear index is a real index that kind of measures people's sentiment. And in terms of sentiment, I have one client that works for Brink's operations. He's very high up. He was one of the architects behind the Fed Now coin, which is all the precursor to the CBDC nonsense. Central bank digital currencies, it's not even a digital currency to me, it's a software. And without going too far down the rabbit hole with you, I think this is going to be absolutely disastrous. Fiat money based on zeros and ones heading towards a cashless society. This is something people are concerned about. They read the stories, it freaks them out. They should be absolutely horrified. So I could go on and on about that, but that's definitely a hot button. Obviously, people are aware that we're printing money. The amount of interest we are paying every day is in the tens of millions of dollars. I always say debt does matter. At some point in time, if you had a credit card and you didn't pay your bill, they cut you off. This is what's going to happen with the US economy, especially with the Congress. You turn on the headlines sometimes, government shutdowns. Do they come up with another number? Oh, I know, let's print more money. So this whole printing more money is only going to, you can only kick the can down the road for so long before you stub your toe. So, there's going to be major ramifications. People aren't even talking about this, but I let the cat out the bag early. People need to start talking about, Social Security, money running out for Social Security. Where's that money going to come from? Medicare. So these are a lot of programs that we have to pay for. People are kind of beginning to ask those types of questions. Obviously, government overreach. People don't like government overreach at all. They want privacy, having something tangible that you hold, keeping it in a gun safe somewhere in their own possession. People like this. And obviously, people are also very concerned about the unknown. Now, obviously, we don't have a time machine to go forwards or backwards, but people do remember, and they still have long memories about the '08 crash, the dot-coms crash, what history has done. Obviously, the younger crowd, I always say they plan for Saturday night, not the future, but people that have remembrance of what happened during, bear markets, market collapses, those people are more concerned because they're now retiring or they're retired. And if a market crash comes along, before, they had the fortitude to kind of hold on to what they have with the mentality that it will come back. And that's what financial advisors always say to you: it will come back. And I have to agree with them. Yes, it will indeed come back, but how long until it comes back, right? So when people say to me, well, I don't have 7 years or 15 years for my portfolio value to come back, they're realizing that they're on this busy freeway, there's congestion ahead. Now's the time to get off onto a clear path and a safe path. And that's what people want for their retirement dollars. They want a safe path. They want to be away from the threat of the US dollar losing more value or collapsing. They want to be away from really an economy that's just fueling inflation, coupled by high interest rates. We haven't really talked much about the real estate market, but I think people out there generally know that it's teeter-tottering. It's not that very healthy right now. So, like I mentioned, we have many problems that we're dealing with, from banking to economic. All this uncertainty are definitely kind of driving points that people are really picking up the phone and calling us to say, I have this IRA, I have this 401k. What are my options? Does this plan TSP? Does this qualify? So I think really the main sentiment that we get are people are in what I call discovery mode. And that discovery mode is, how can I plan for the future? And I always make this analogy that you don't wait to buy gold, you buy gold and wait. But it's never been so true, because when we see all these issues hurtling towards us, it's time to kind of stand tall, not bury our heads in the sand and pretend everything's okay, but be proactive and not reactive. And I think as long as you're proactive for 2024 and you understand what your options are, and there are options, folks. So don't think like, everything collapses, we lose everything. There's safety measures that we can do, safeguards that we can take place right now to make sure that the dollars you have invested in different markets have a hedge. And that hedge is very simple. Gold and silver, either physically hold on to it or diversify your retirement accounts and put precious metals in there, such as gold coins and even silver coins and bars. And that's, I'm very a strong advocate for that, and that will never change, JD.
That is some wonderful information. Jonathan Rose from Genesis Gold Group. We'll have you on the show on March 24th, 2024, so that we can finally, because we're not allowed to ask the question today, but on that day we'll be able to ask, Jonathan, what is the price of gold on March 24th, 2024? And you'll look at the information and you'll say it's high. So thank you so much for being on the show today, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. I've been a big fan of gold and silver since the Biden regime has taken over. And the research that I've done has told me who I can trust and who I can't trust. And Genesis Gold Group is the company that I trust. You can check them out at protectwealthnow.com. And the reason I want you to do that is because as a Christian company, as a faith-driven company, they will do everything they can, everything in their power, to make sure that your wealth, your retirement, your life's savings is protected. In this tumultuous times, it's very easy to it's all done, it's all over, game over, man, as they said in Aliens. Well, it's not for everybody. Some people are going to be very well protected, and they can do that by going to protectwealthnow.com.